you have to work really hard to make the piece you want to have. It's not something that can happen without a shit ton of work, but it is possible.
Hello, welcome and pleasantries. My name is Bartolomew Sammut, the program manager and part of the selection committee for Panorama. And today I am very happy to be speaking with Angelo Madsen Minax, director of this year's official Berlinale selection, North by Current. Hello, Madsen. Welcome to this lovely Berlinale Meets. Thank you very much for talking with us today and for this incredible personal and moving work. What would you say your film is about?
The film is really about about how difficult it is to grow up and self-actualize, and this idea that you can never leave home, that home will always kind of be in you wherever you go, no matter how you sort of distance yourself or self-actualize or literally physically separate yourself from the womb from whence you came, your mother's body, your family dynamic, the way those things always stay with you and sort of follow you into everything else you do.
You want to hear about our other kid we lost?
We've lost two.
We had
a grandchild and a daughter.
We had a little girl named Angela. She was quite the character. And we never talked about it before, but she was quite the little sweetheart.
So you would equate my transition with Cal's death?
Well, you got all memories of a little girl.
You know, I think it would be the same thing if you had a child and something happened to that child and they no longer were the same person. You would grieve, you know, who they were for the years that they were someone different. And once I realized I had to grieve that as a loss, then it helped with my acceptance a lot better in regards to your decision to transition.
Like, not to sound corny, but there was like a lot of healing work being done really quickly. Like just the simple like process of opening space for conversation was like really immediately transformative for pretty much everyone. And so that was something that kept me going back. Was it just felt like I was getting somewhere emotionally, and that you know, the film really became a way to connect with my family members and for us to kind of have a joint venture together, right? For us to like have this thing we were creating together, which will always kind of create its own particular breed of intimacy. And I think that that idea of us having a baby together, us having a project together, really allowed us to like come to communicate in ways that were both reminiscent of our old histories, but also built room for us to build new histories together.
I'd like to ask then, how was it then through the editing process of this film?
The edit was brutal. Like, it was so hard. I can't really sugarcoat it very well. It was brutal. Mostly just sort of like, you know, when you have conversations with people, you're usually not kind of like sitting with them indefinitely for like 3 or 4 years afterwards. And so, you know, especially certain scenes, like there were particular scenes where there's not a lot of scenes in the film where there's like what you might call drama happening, but there is 1 or 2. And sitting with those kind of on replay was a little bit like an exorcism. And I think about it now in terms of like, is that exorcism a process, or is it desensitization? When things became easier for me to witness, easier for me to hear, there was some comfort in the editing process there. But definitely for the first, you know, I don't know, 8, 9, 10, 12, 15 times I was seeing something that was hard, it was still hard, you know? As I discovered through the making of the project, and it's funny, it's more like I rediscovered it. Like, I've known this in my body all along, but like, it was interesting to like rediscover things about your family dynamic, which is that like, they were just like, what do you want to do? Okay, let's go do it. And I feel like that was actually like a lot of my childhood too, in some ways. They were always super supportive of my weird ideas, even though they had no, like, they're like, we don't know what you're doing, kid, but okay, sure. And so I feel like a lot of the movie was kind of like that too. They're like, you have an idea, you should follow your dream, let's help you. So they were really just like, what do you want? What do you want from us? Let's do it.
Action.
Are you having breakfast or are you having lunch?
I'm having breakfast.
What are you doing, Jess?
Probably lunch.
Lunch? You've never been much of a breakfast eater.
Well, where, oh, where can my baby be? The Lord took her away from me. She's gone to heaven, so I got to be good, so I can see my baby when I leave this world.
What are you having, Jesse?
Probably a sandwich.
Alright. Hamburger?
How much longer is this going to be?
Get what you needed.
The car was stalled, the engine was dead. I couldn't stop, so I swerved to the right. Never forget the sound that night.
This event has happened 3 times now. Once when you just watched it. Once when I staged and filmed it. And then the first time, when 4 days after Callow's funeral, we walked into this diner and sat down for lunch. Going to the diner, you know, I didn't give them a ton of backstory about why we were doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't tell them we were going to be listening to the song, which we didn't actually do in the diner that day. Yeah, I mean, I think I tried to give them as little details as possible to not have them overthink the situation, and for us to execute it like a task in some way. And I think like that's part of what comes off in the scene too, is like my dad kind of like having that scripted dialogue of him being like, you know, it's subtext, but it sort of says everything in the subtext, you know, like, we're here doing this for you. Are you getting what you wanted? We have no interest in this, but we love you, you know? And I think they just through conversation, and then also like playing, it's like, you know, you have a conversation, then that conversation gets played back to you. It's like a double whammy of like layers. I think they had a lot of new realizations about how ways they had operated had been challenging, you know, and people, like, not to sound myopic or whatever, but people don't change, you know, they are who they are. So like, if like, you know, my parents are still plenty challenging. My mom believes the doctor was a messenger, a testament to the truth of the Mormon faith.
She also believes that there are many gods and goddesses in the cosmos, that in the celestial kingdom, 1,000 years is equivalent to a single day, and that after death, the physical body will be reunited with the spirit body.
I found this sort of, you know, overarching like meta themes in the film are this sort of like slippage of time, and the ways in which things feel circular and repetitive in some ways, and the sort of ways in which that circular experience is sort of antithetical to like a patriarchal Christian heteronormative understanding of linear time. So using the home movies and the Super 8 footage became a way for me just to sort of like literally fuck the timeline a little bit, and kind of suggest that like it's okay for us to think about all of this rhizomatically, you know, as like it's like amorphously blobbing around each other, as opposed to kind of thinking about it as like a linear path to development, which obviously like, you know, movies function in linear time. So you can never get away from the fact that like you're stuck in linear time. We live in linear time, you know, there's no way out of it. But there are ways to like gesture to the mutability of it and to the ways we can sort of like poke at it and like push against its ridges. And I think using archival is a great way to do that. I think it's happening in lots of films all the time. It's happening in more subconscious ways, and I'm just kind of bringing it to the surface a little bit more visibly.
What would be the feeling that you want the audience to walk away with after seeing your film?
There's a sort of way in which you can come to terms with all of the things that are all of the pieces of shit that are thrown at you every day. And obviously in this film, like there's a lot of shit, but like also in the scope of some human lives, it's not a lot of shit, whatever. We're like all in our different shit paths. You can find common ground. You can find ways to connect beyond what you think is perhaps unconnectable.
Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us,
Yeah, of course.
sharing this film with us.
Yeah, I'm so happy to talk to you and so happy to be able to share this film with the audiences.